So I was not expecting to make this video, but I just got my hands on the VorpX PC VR mod, and while I was looking at their website, I noticed it mentioned a little game called Antichamber was supported. For an 11-year-old puzzle game, I think about Antichamber a lot. But it wasn't until my last playthrough a couple weeks ago that I realized it might be one of my favorite puzzle games ever. There's been a couple games that have come out over the years that have taken inspiration from it, but there's still nothing quite like this fantastic little game. And I knew right then and there, it had to be my first VorpX mod video. If you know what the VorpX mod is, you have a good idea of what you're getting yourself into. It's a paid PC VR mod with varying degrees of jank that uses head tracking to aim and requires a lot of playing around with the settings to get it working right for you. Some things work better than others, but this mod is a really great option to try VR on a massive list of games that were never designed for it. My hope is that this video will give Antichamber a chance to find a new audience or be a trip down memory lane for old fans, whether you choose to play it in VR or flat screen, because I think this game is incredible and well worth playing. Personally, I think the world of Antichamber really lends itself to VR. Now, because this is a relatively short puzzle game, I'm only going to show footage from the first 20-ish minutes. There's a ton of little secrets in Antichamber, and I don't want to spoil anything because I think this game is really special to experience blind. But what is Antichamber? This is a first-person, non-Euclidean puzzle game. Non-Euclidean is a complicated subject that I never really know how to explain, but the best way I've found to visualize it is the impossible staircase or continuous stairs. In simple terms, it means that geometry and distance don't work the same as they would in reality. Rules that you would typically assume to be true, like two parallel lines will never meet, don't apply in this world, and it creates some really mind-melting puzzles that don't work the way that you would ever expect them to. It creates a really unique and mesmerizing experience unlike any other. There's two primary types of puzzles that you'll experience in Antichamber. The first are world navigation puzzles, and the second are puzzles involving the matter gun. To get a sense of how this game works, let's take a look at one of the first puzzles you'll encounter. You come down this hallway to two staircases, a red and a blue one. If you take the blue one, it takes you up the stairs and brings you right back to where you started. And if you take the red one, it brings you around to the same place. So you find these two pictures on the wall that offer clues about how this puzzle works. One says a choice may be as simple as left or right, and the other one says that the choice doesn't matter if the outcome is the same. So instead of going forward to either of the staircases, what if we go back to where we came from? Somehow, we're now in a different part of the map. The other puzzles you'll encounter are the matter gun puzzles, which are a little more straightforward. You'll encounter a couple different kinds of these matter guns, each one allowing you to manipulate these cubes in different ways. The first one is the blue matter gun, which will simply let you pick up and put down cubes. You can pick up as many cubes as you want and put down as many as you can carry. While these puzzles start out simple, they can get really complex, especially when you start to involve the other matter guns. Between the different kinds of puzzles, there's a really consistent and rewarding feedback loop. You almost always feel like you're discovering something new or solving an incredible puzzle, and it can really make you feel like a genius sometimes, but it can also make you feel really, really dumb. Fortunately, if you ever do get stuck, all you have to do is hit escape and you return to the starting room with a map so you can jump back to any of the puzzles. So why is this game stuck with me for so long? You've probably noticed how minimalistic the art design is. From the second you boot it up, you're immediately dropped into the game world. So much so that the menus are built into that game world, and the only instruction you'll ever get are these cryptic messages that are seemingly pointing you in a direction. The first one being to just begin the journey. Despite never having any explicit direction or motive, you'll start to move through this world and you'll find things that are misleading, or surprising, or even unnerving. The real joy of Antichamber is the journey itself. There's all these little mysteries. Nothing is ever really explained, and the world encourages you to discover more about it. Even while I was recording footage for this video, I stumbled on an entirely new puzzle that I had never found before. And there's another area that I know I've seen, but I cannot find again, despite how many times I've played this game. That constant feeling of discovery, or the rewarding feeling every time you solve a puzzle, combined with the minimalistic look and the soundtrack, which is primarily just nature sounds, creates a really hypnotic experience. And in VR, it all gets dialed up. There aren't a ton of these non-Euclidean experiences that you can have in VR, and I think the only truly non-Euclidean game that I've seen with native VR support is Hyperbolica. There is something truly fascinating about non-Euclidean VR experiences. I don't know if it's the way that it plays with your brain or expectations of reality, but personally, they make me really anxious, and I can't quite explain it. In the case of Hyperbolica, it's one of the few games that makes me legitimately sick when I try to play it. Hopefully someday I work up the nerve to make that video because it's something I've wanted to do since I started this channel. Fortunately, Antichamber is a much more palatable VR experience. I'm not going to tell you that it's the best VR experience ever. If I'm being honest, I think you'll need a pretty high tolerance for VR mod jank to play it. What I can say, however, is that whether you play this in VR or flat screen, you've never played anything like it, and that's the reason I mention it to virtually everyone that asks for game recommendations. So is this your first time seeing Antichamber? Are you an old fan? Let me know in the comments. I know this game had kind of a cult following when it came out, but I don't really hear it come up in conversation at all anymore, and I love hearing about people's first time experiencing it. I'm gearing up to cover some of the last big games for the rest of the year, and I was curious if you guys would be interested in a video about my top 10 VR games from 2024 to wrap things up. I've also been working behind the scenes on some big plans for next year, so subscribe if you want to see any of that. As always, if you've made it this far in the video and you enjoyed the content, I appreciate anytime somebody hits that like button. It really supports the channel, and if you didn't like the content, hit that thumbs down and let me know why. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.